Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Beautiful outside today. It's 23 degrees Celsius. Yes, I use Celsius. It's just easier. I grew up with it, with the metric system. It's very weird switching between the metric system and the American system, but we spend years perfecting it. So I know I've been away for a little while, but I'm back. Not that I've been away from the practice, I just haven't had the ability to do these videos because I've been in meetings and, away. Today, I want to talk about a topic that we hear a lot about from our clients. And I hope this sheds some light, and I really hope you listen to it because it can help you avoid a lot of questions in the future. So, to any process, any immigration process, there's two components. And this is true whether you do it yourself or you do it with an attorney. There is the work and there's the time that it takes us to prepare to work with you on your file, right? And then the file gets submitted. And then there's sometimes, a lot of the times, extended periods of time when you don't hear anything from us. That doesn't mean your case has stopped. No. The second component of every case is where the government that has received your application is now working on it. Remember that immigration benefits, and they're called that for a reason, are granted by the US government. And there are multiple things that go into processing of each case. So let's take it one by one. I can talk about it for hours probably, but I'm going to try to condense it. So let's talk about the most typical one that has to do with USCIS, work permits. I know a lot of people rely on them to keep their jobs, and there's a lot of frustrations that goes in when cases are not received, let's say, in a timely fashion. When you come to us, we prepare your work permit and we have submitted it to the USCIS. USCIS will then issue us a receipt, right? It's going to have your receipt number, the date that they have received and started processing it, and the category under which you're processing it. Because if you're applying for asylum, it's one category. If you're in the DACA, it's a different category. If you're applying for marriage, it's a third category. If you're under deferred action, it's another category, right? There are a bunch of different categories that you can have a work permit under. Then, and this is very important, USCIS.gov, the website, has a page where they have processing times listed for each and every type of application in conjunction with where you have filed it, right? So if we're talking about petition for an alien relative, like a form I-130, you can be pending with one of the several service center, and each of the service centers will have their own processing times. How do processing times work? They're usually a range of dates from 7 to 14 months, from 10 to 20 months, from 18 to 24 months, okay? That is the period of time that the US government is reserving for themselves to work on your case. Those numbers are not set in stone. They very frequently are changed. And if your case is within that range of time and you submit any type of inquiry other than a request to expedite based on some exigent circumstances, the response you're going to get is that your case is within normal processing time. It is being reviewed. Basically, short of there being an emergency, for example, I'll explain to you. For example, during the pandemic, we were able to expedite work permits for people who are emergency responders, who were frontline workers, for people who worked in the hospitals and, with patients and stuff like that. But not everybody who fell under the category of essential workers fell also into the category that the USCIS, the government, the immigration, designated that they would be expediting work permits for. Okay? Here's another huge one that we get so many inquiries about. This is recent. There is a waiver, inadmissibility waiver 601A. The people who are in that process know what I will be talking about. It is for those people who will eventually be leaving the United States in order to go to a U.S. embassy or consulate for their immigrant interview. The processing times for that waiver are recently around 2 years. You've worked with us. You've gotten everything done. You've paid all the fees to us. We have submitted everything. And then their government is taking 2 years to review and make a decision on your case. 2 years. That's how much time they've given themselves, essentially. If you try to inquire as to the status of the case within that time, the answer you're going to get is that your case is within normal processing time, right? Again, there's always exceptions. If your loved one, the person who you're relying on, the qualifying relative is experiencing an emergency or there are other emergencies, and it's a case-by-case basis, we can submit a request to expedite it. And then the US government is going to see and determine whether they consider that to be a true emergency or a good enough reason to expedite the processing of your case. And as of last year, 99% of those have been denied because I think that they're still working. I know they're still working from the backlog 100%. They still are. And they're also are working with the fact that the Department of State that processes the immigrant visas that ultimately will be in charge of scheduling the appointment and so on and so forth is exceptionally backlogged. Some embassies were closed for 2 years. Some embassies are on and off. Some embassies have shut down. I understand that people are under impression that the pandemic is over. And I'm not here to debate whether it is or it isn't, but I'm just telling you that what it caused, the delays and the backlogs that it caused, are going to take a long time to get through. That is when it comes to USCIS. And one of important things, I know this was the opposite day complaint that we had. Now, on the flip side, during the last administration, during the Trump administration, the green cards based on marriage or family relationships were sometimes taking 18 months to process. Whereas now the amount of time has significantly shortened, and it is most evident with applications for citizenship. We went from being over a year, close to 18 months, to now some people are getting 4, 5, 6 months after the filing. And even though we'll let people know, listen, the minute we file this, you need to start getting ready for the test, for the interview, to have all of your ducks in a row, because we cannot tell you whether it's going to be 6 months or 10 months. As of the day of the filing, you should be ready to go forward with the interview. Start getting ready to go forward with the interview. All right? Because people get very early interviews, like 5 months after filing, and they are like, oh, I'm not ready for this interview. I can't postpone a citizenship interview based on not ready. I need more of a reason. So these are processing times. They're not under our control. They're not even under the officer's control that is processing your case. They change very frequently. And yes, sometimes in October, when we file, the processing time is 10 months. And then by April, the processing time is 18 months. It is outside of your control. There's nothing you can do. The government will take as much time as they need to process your case. Now, the difference is when your case is spending outside of normal processing time. If you have surpassed the range that the government tells you that they're working on now, let's say 10 to 18 months, or sometimes they will post, we are currently looking at applications filed on February 1st, 2020, for example. If you have filed way before that, there are a series of inquiries that you can do with USCIS in order to get the status of your case. And if you are unsuccessful with obtaining a case or pushing it forward after a certain amount of attempts and, escalating it through the correct protocols, there comes a time when you have the option to sue them in order to get your decision. Now, you don't take the lawsuit against the US government lightly. We only use that in very limited amount of circumstances, and we explain to the client from the get-go that this doesn't guarantee a positive outcome. It just guarantees that they will give you an answer. Okay, that's USCIS. When it comes to immigration court, things are even murkier, right? There are a lot of cases with immigration court. They can be pending anywhere from a few years to we have cases that have been there for 10 years for various reasons. But let's take again the most common one that we're dealing with now. During the Trump administration, if you found yourself in front of an immigration judge and at the time you're trying to obtain your green card based on marriage, the Trump era protocol was that you had to proceed in front of the judge. Whereas now the protocol is the judge would terminate the proceedings, close essentially the proceedings against you, and send you down to USCIS for a faster process and for just an interview in front of the officer. And based on my experience, neither the judges, nor we, nor you, nor the government attorneys, nobody wanted to do these straightforward marriage cases and clog the judge's docket and have them wait for 2.5 years for the next hearing if, God forbid, the government wanted to see an additional piece of paper. Nobody liked that procedure, but we had no choice. That was what we had to deal with. We operate within the bounds of the procedure and the law. Now that the things have changed, people are asking why. Why is it still taking such a long time? So the reason it's taking such a long time, reasons. A, the court was closed from March 2020 until July 2021, 16 months. During that time, nothing moved, nothing essentially got done or close to a stop. When the court started reopening judges, during those times, judges retired. There were judges, the new judges that got added to the immigration court in New York and in New Jersey. Then the new administration came in. The new administration changed the rules in starting May 2021. They've been implementing a lot of changes. So you have to understand that everybody, all three sides, are starting to figure out this new world that we're living in. Yes, the judges are dismissing cases that they can. They're closing those immigration proceedings where they have the ability, where we've made application. They are terminating and remanding to USCIS. But it takes time. It takes months. A lot of the judges are working remote, only coming into the court maybe once or twice a week. Some judges are fully remote, that when they're only operating on electronic submissions and everything is being done through video and mail submissions and so on and so forth. The court clerks of the judges are not there full time. The staff of the court is not there even full time. So yes, the court is open, but you have to understand all of the context under which it's open. They were closed for 15 months. So can you imagine the tremendous amount of backlog that created with a court that was already overwhelmed with the amount of cases they were dealing with? The government is overwhelmed because there are thousands of submissions for prosecutorial discretion for joint motions to reopen, because for 4 years the gates were closed, and now the gates for these people are now open to try again and try for the first time. And we're trying for as many people as we can, but they only have a certain amount of attorneys and supervisors who have to review the submissions, who have to discuss it with the private bar, which is us, with your attorneys. So that is creating a tremendous amount of backlog, not to mention the fact that after reopening of the court, there's been at least 2 changes in how we submit cases electronically, to an email, by paper, through a portal. All of that all together creates a tremendous amount of backlog and requires a significant amount of patience on your part and on our part. I have to tell you, there is absolutely no pleasure in holding a case that I know that should have been already done to USCIS, and the person should have, under other circumstances, have already had the green card still pending. And we're following up, but when we are told, listen, you're on our list, we'll get to you when we get to you, you can't do. There's a lot of the times we don't even have access to judges and clerks now anymore because they're all working remotely, right? All of that together is the reason why your case essentially is still pending in the majority of the people who are coming to us. I'm not even touching background in this video. This is just processing times in terms of pure process. There are no issues. There are no criminal issues. There are no mandatory or necessary background checks because party affiliations, whatever. We're just talking about straightforward cases. All right. The last piece of the puzzle would be the National Visa Center, our beloved National Visa Center, and the embassies. Yes, there are people whose cases have been pending for a long time. Sometimes it is the fact that the embassy has been on and off for several years at this point, opening, closing, closing, opening, only processing certain amounts of visas, only processing these types of visas, and then shutting down again, right? So all of that created a backlog with the National Visa Center that is over 500,000 cases. Again, they are getting through them as much as possible, but you have to understand that embassies are not interviewing with the same protocols they used to interview before the pandemic. Whereas before the pandemic, they used to staff the embassy with more people. They used to have more interviews per day. Now, of course, they are not doing that. They are being COVID conscious. You have to have COVID testing or vaccination in order to get to a U.S. embassy. They are not staffing at 100% capacity. They're requiring more things to be submitted by email. And during the interview itself, they have a very specific list of documents that you want. And most of the time, where we are having the delays is most of the embassies, in a lot of the cases, want IRS transcripts, and IRS in themselves are backlogged with how fast they're processing and delivering these IRS transcripts to the people. So that creates an additional delay. So we're essentially operating in the era of the delay, we can call it that. But having said that, and having all of these delays, there is a huge amount of cases that are being processed. People are getting green cards weekly. People are moving forward weekly. It just requires more attention. It requires more patience. And sometimes it's outside of our control. Are we aware the fact that a lot of our clients, their job depends on work permits? Yes. Can we help everybody? No. If there is a 9 months processing time for a work permit and you came to us the week it was to expire, nobody can do anything about those 9 months. Yes, we can send them a letter saying our client's job depends on it, but the US government ultimately is going to decide whether they will grant the exception to expedited processing or not. And secondly, and I don't say with a light heart, I'm not trying to be, you need to understand that work permit is an auxiliary benefit. It's not a right. Being in the United States does not create the right to have a work permit, no matter what process you're going through. It is more of a discretionary grant by the government that allows you, like, hey, listen, we recognize that we're taking time in processing these cases. So for you not to starve to death and not to work on a black market, will give you the ability to work. So it's more of like they are being nice more than like, oh, I want my work permit. So that is a very important factor to remember. Have I spoken enough today? I think this is a lot of information. You can rewatch it over and over again. Oh, when it comes to National Visa Center, a year and a half sometimes, we're seeing the cases. And then we'll get like 10 in a row, for example, because your batch was released from the National Visa Center and the embassy interviews sometimes just come in batches. Like some weeks we'll just get 10 and we're going to process all of them, make sure everybody has all of their documents, they know where they go, they're prepped, they've gone through all the security questions, and they know what's going to happen to them at the interview. All right, so this is what we're working with. So again, if you have any questions, please, I will post a link to processing times under this video. You can always go there, and I've done these videos before, where to find the correct information and stuff, and how to look it up. So I hope everybody enjoys the Thursday. I certainly am going to go and try to do that. And if you have any questions, please call us, contact us. We're here for you. Thank you. Have a good day.